Good morning, everyone. Chief Meteorologist Joel Fritzma here, alongside Drew Brummel, right below me. I'm going to turn on his volume now before I forget. There we go. You can say hi, Drew.
What's up, guys?
We are the Michigan Storm Chasers. We got a live severe weather briefing for y'all this morning. Concerning severe weather over the next 2 days across portions of Michigan, we have today and mainly tonight, and then we also have tomorrow afternoon and evening as well for more of the lower peninsula. But we're going to start by looking at our severe weather outlook for today from the Storm Prediction Center first, which does have a slight risk for portions of the western UP. Also around that slight risk is a level 1 marginal risk in the green there, the dark green, and anywhere you see the lighter green is just a general thunderstorm category. And that really encompasses only portions of the eastern UP, maybe even far northwestern, lower Michigan late tonight into tomorrow morning. And also we have a secondary system moving up from the south that could produce some thunderstorms along 94 and south very late this evening. Again, we don't expect any of those storms to be severe, just a general thunderstorm chance for just like a pop-up or two along the I-94 corridor. But again, main severe weather threat today, western UP, and that is due to the fact we have a couple lines of damaging winds moving in, and that is your odds there from the SBC, and also for hail, also a 15% risk there in the western UP, mainly Gogebic, Ontonagon, and Houghton counties. And the tornado risk is low, but it's not zero. Any of these storms does have sufficient shear out there in the atmosphere to produce perhaps a brief, quick QLCS type tornado, which is just like an embedded tornado within the line of damaging winds. And again, that risk is around 2%. Looking into tomorrow real quick, the SBC has maintained their marginal risk for the entire lower peninsula. They've also added a slight risk just off to the west. This is primarily due to damaging winds. You can see here on the map that is correlating very well, 100% of it. And there also is a chance for tornadoes over there on the west side of the lake. Over here in Michigan, at the current time, the SBC is thinking no tornado chances. However, we will dive into our thinking here in just a second. They're also thinking that there's no chance for hail, or less than 5% chance for hail. Also going to dive into our thinking there in just a second. So overall, here's day 1 from the SBC and day 2. So you can kind of think of it as one peninsula one day, the other peninsula the next. Upper peninsula is today, lower peninsula is tomorrow. From us here at Michigan Storm Chasers, we also release our own in-house forecast products. They have not been released yet. They are coming out on Patreon in I think just a couple minutes, if not right now. So here is what we're expecting for, actually that's tomorrow's. Here's today's. It kind of correlates pretty well with what the SBC has. Again, level 3 is basically their equivalent to a slight risk. This is wind and hail driven across the UP up there. Again, that is going to be the Keweenaw Peninsula, Porcupine Mountains, as well as the high ranges in Marquette and Baraga counties. We also have a level 2 and level 1 risk further off to the east. Again, no matter what risk zone you are in, if you're watching from the UP, you are in the risk to see severe weather. It just depends on what the odds are. And our individual hazard maps for each of these will be out this afternoon when we release these maps to the public. Again, they'll be on Patreon here in just a short while, if not within the next couple seconds. Alex is finishing that up right now behind the scenes. Again, same thing for tomorrow. We also have the low risk kind of split into 2 different zones, and you'll see why here in just a second. We have zone 1 kind of on the east side of the state and zone 2 on the west. Either way, the entire lower peninsula we have in a chance for severe weather tomorrow, and obviously we also have the US 2 corridor up there in the UP just in case a couple severe storms do make it a tiny bit further north. But again, this is our thinking for tomorrow. This is driven by wind and hail, and also on the west side of the state as well. And then there's also just that tiny little gap tomorrow because these storms will likely fire to the east of a boundary off the lake and push off to the east. And then the secondary line tomorrow night, which we'll talk about here in just a second, moving in from the west, which is that stuff that we were pointing out over in the Chicagoland area off the SBC map where they have that slight risk. So we also have to watch out for rainfall. So this is something that is going to be primarily confined to the Upper Peninsula. Again, we have a bunch of training systems over the same area between this afternoon, tonight, tomorrow morning. So it's kind of like back-to-back swaths of rain. Portions of northern Minnesota have already seen 1.5 inches of rain this morning, and so that is enough confidence to give us these zones up here, which the numbers are off, but we have a level 5, level 6 zone up there where about 2 inches of rain is possible, and the NDFD kind of lines up with that here. Fast forwarding into tomorrow morning, there's already places where you can see 1.5 inches of rain. Fast forward it through the end of the day on Thursday, we get our rain down in the lower peninsula, albeit less up in the UP. That is where you're going to see all those hot reds are going to be the 2 inches or greater zone. Again, the NDFD is also a product that the National Weather Service relies on heavily. And so again, there's a lot of confidence in at least the western and central portions of the UP seeing close to, if not widespread areas of 2 inches of rain. And again, lower peninsula kind of scattered throughout. The general thinking there is maybe at most a 1/4 inch of rain. However, if you saw in our previous map there, that dashed green line around the area means isolated pockets of 1 to 1.5 inches of rain, similar to what we had in our last system, due to the fact that these cells that do pop up in nature tomorrow afternoon always bring localized areas of heavy rainfall. And again, those are usually about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of rain. And depending on how the P watts are, the precipitable water in the atmosphere, we could see over 1.5 inches in some spots as well. But again, the area-wide going rate for tomorrow across the lower peninsula is around 1/4 inch, maybe 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. So we'll go into the model runs for the next 48 hours, really, for our severe weather that is supposed to be moving in tonight for the UP and tomorrow for the lower peninsula. This is going to be the HRRR run from 12Z this morning, so at about 8 o'clock when this model came out. So about 3 hours ago, you can see it did have those storms pop up in the, not to the greatest extent, but it did have some cells pop up here in the Baraga County region. I will say on radar it was more pronounced, so we'll have to see how that correlates with tonight, being that the HRRR has this very, very well pronounced. We could see a very large, widespread damaging wind event. This right here is your Boeing segment out, rolling into the Porcupine Mountains, Keweenaw Peninsula area, right around 8 to 9 o'clock Eastern time, so 8 to 7 p.m. Central if you are in the counties bordering Wisconsin. And we go into 10, 11, and midnight for tonight here across the western UP. And you can see those cells start to fizzle out as our daytime heating kind of reduces the instability available for these storms, and they really just fizzle out completely as we get into tomorrow. We can also see a couple pop-up storms across the region very, very late tonight, honestly, over past midnight for southwest Michigan. As we mentioned on our map, there's a tiny little thunderstorm category down there. And then as we move into tomorrow morning, it's going to be 6, 7, and 8 a.m. Actually, it's going to be 10 a.m., 11, noon. Not a whole lot going on out there for your Wednesday to start. A couple showers and storms up there in the UP. Not expected to be severe by any means. And then as we get into the 3 o'clock, and this is now the 4 o'clock time frame, Eastern time, you can see cells popping up all over the central and east portions of the lower peninsula. And you also have your large segment over there in Wisconsin and northern Illinois that is denoting that slight risk for Wisconsin, Illinois tomorrow. This is radar as of 7 p.m. projected, 8 p.m., 9 p.m. And you can see as the instability weakens for the day, those cells over in eastern Michigan will start to decrease as well. We get to 10 o'clock in that line of perhaps damaging winds and perhaps a brief spin-up tornado. We can't rule that out given the fact that this is driven by an MCV. So an MCV is like a little localized area of low pressure. It's not like a huge thing by any means, but again, it is basically a driving factor with enough spin in the atmosphere where we could see around a 2% chance, maybe even a little bit higher, to have a quick spin-up tornado within the vicinity of the center of this low, which on here would be somewhere, I would imagine, right in here on this radar image. Again, I'm going to scroll down just so you guys can see the southern portions of the state. I want to make sure I get everything on the map here. I have to full screen it. Almost does it worse. There we go. So this is going to be 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and then this is around 1 a.m. Showers and storms could be still strong at times as it approaches the 127 corridor. And then 2 a.m., 3 a.m., it goes over to the east side of the state. And that's really when we start to see the severe wind down, is around 3 a.m. tomorrow night into Thursday morning. And then those showers and storms start to fizzle out as we get into Thursday morning. Overall, we could see a couple of lingering showers throughout the day on Thursday, which will increase those rainfall totals. The next best day for widespread sunshine will be on Friday, so keep that in mind. Thursday could be a semi-washout, not completely, but it is something that we are watching closely as well that will add to those rainfall totals that we saw on that map that we showed you guys previously. So overall, severe weather tonight, western UP going to be around the 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock time frame for Keweenaw Peninsula especially, and Porcupine Mountains. By the time it gets to midnight, it makes it over to Marquette, but then it really starts to fizzle out. A couple thunderstorms popping up in southwest Michigan overnight tonight, not expected to be severe. Storms tomorrow start to fire up around 3 to 4 o'clock Eastern, and those continue through the evening hours for the east side of the state. And we also have that MCV moving across the lake that will produce damaging winds potentially, and perhaps a brief spin-up tornado as well that we are watching very closely. I'll go ahead and go into our severe weather ingredients here real quick just to see. Again, we look at our helicity values here. Anything in the helicity range of about 100 and 150, maybe even higher than 150, for 0 to 3 is what we're looking for enough spin. And so this is going to be tomorrow night around 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and you see right when that line segment starts to come on shore, there are little splotches of over 150 to 200, maybe even 250 in spots as it comes on shore. And actually the RIJ starts to increase as the night goes on, and so we see these storm relative helicity values increase beyond 250 in spots as well. So our spin kind of increases throughout the night, and that's why we are confident at least maybe a 2 to 4% chance to see a tornado within any sort of severe storm. Now, a reminder, those odds are always 0 until you get a storm. So if you don't get a storm, then the odds will be 0% nonetheless. Again, I'll have probably a video on that and how the odds work, the probabilities work in these sort of severe weather forecasts, hopefully in the near future when there's not severe weather ongoing. But yeah, the spin kind of increases. You can also see today, late tonight, that spin also increases across the western UP where there is that 2% risk. So we could see embedded cells have a quick spin-up tornado in the ranges of the western UP. Other than that, though, we can look at our instability for tomorrow as well. This is going to be our storm fuel. Well, today and tomorrow, I should say. Anything over 1,000 is sufficient for severe, especially this time of the year. Anything really over 1,500 is going to be good to go. And we have 1,500, 1,750, even 2,000 in portions of the UP tonight. And then we get into tomorrow, and that instability really starts to ramp up across the lower peninsula, where you see a bunch of different splotches of 2,000 and higher, Lake Michigan as well. And as we get into tomorrow night, the excess cape is bottled up and used in that line as it comes on shore through West Michigan, Central Michigan, over towards the US 127 corridor, and then overnight into Thursday. So all that being said, again, slight risk in effect for today from the SBC up there in the western UP. And tomorrow we have a widespread marginal risk across the lower peninsula. That may change in future outlooks. And our in-house forecasts are kind of the same. We have today and tomorrow there listed on our graphic. Drew, is there anything I missed?
No, I think you kind of covered everything in regards to today and tomorrow. As you kind of mentioned, today our focus is the UP with that cold front that's moving through. I will say with any storms that do form, the SBC and us do have that small concern for an isolated tornado. I will say the better chances of a tornado happening today is if a cell remains discrete in nature. The HRRR model does show, for an example, a few cells forming that are discrete in nature, but they seem to be more outside of the UP. We'll see if that continues to be the case, but the best chance of a tornado happening today would be if it's more discrete in nature. If it's more of a line, which it would become more and more likely the further east you go into the UP, then it'd be more of a damaging wind threat. But nevertheless, there is that 2% from the SBC as well as from our in-house outlook as well. So once again, a low all-hazard threat for the UP, and just like you're kind of mentioning, Joel, MCVs are very tricky to forecast. Models always have a hard time trying to figure out what they'll exactly do. I will say that probably the higher confidence will be in our neighboring states like Wisconsin and Illinois. But once again, all it can take is just maybe, just some extra instability, or if the system speeds up a bit where it could be in a more favorable environment, and then you might have to be on the lookout for higher severe weather probabilities potentially in the west side of the state potentially.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts, especially during the summer when one day might rely more on the next day. So we'll keep an eye on it over the next 24 hours. And again, we'll have an updated map out. Obviously, this is going to be the map that you guys see for tomorrow later this afternoon. And again, we'll have more maps out each and every day. So starting tomorrow morning as well, we'll start working on a map for updated depending on what the models show. So we could see that slight risk push into West Michigan. We'll have to watch out again. A slight risk just means that there are higher probabilities of severe weather happening. Either way, if you no matter what risk zone you are in, you should always have that mindset that severe weather is possible during the day, even if you are in a blue level 1 zone as shown here on the map. Again, the odds are low, but they're not zero. And so you should always have a way to receive warning if you're going out during a specific day.
I will say also too, we also are watching for tomorrow, as Joel was mentioning, those potential pop-up storms. We've seen them a lot already this summer, as many of you are aware, especially in the east side of the state, these pulse storms where they just kind of bubble up due to the instability in place. And then the main threats that are usually associated with that are usually damaging winds, maybe hail, depending on how the lapse rates are. And then we've had a few instances this summer where we've had a few lake breeze or boundaries that have played in factors, where we've had a few isolated areas of rotation. We saw that a little bit last week. We'll see if that will be the case with this setup. Obviously, like Joel mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts to the system. We kind of want to focus on today, and today will basically play a factor in how tomorrow will play out. So, and then there's also the MCV, and an MCV adds even a more trickier forecast to be even more trickier.
And as a reminder, here's the rainfall for across the state of Michigan. So as you can see on this map, when we show these weather models, there are no cities listed at all. So knowing where you're located on a map, first and foremost, is going to be your best option, especially when it comes to these severe weather briefings. And obviously when we start going into severe weather coverage tomorrow, tonight, knowing where you are on a county-based map, even if your city doesn't show up, is going to do yourself huge favors. Again, especially when we are doing this live severe weather coverage, we can't go around to all 3,000 months of cities across the state, cities, towns, unincorporated districts, and say, hey, this is what's happening in your location, this is happening in your location. Our policy is we're always going to be tracking the severe weather, what cities are impacted by that severe weather, and what cities are perhaps right down the line for that severe weather. So knowing you're located on a map, this is just a good example here. We're showing you the rainfall map projected through the Thursday time frame. You can see there's no cities listed on the state, but there are a bunch of different numbers everywhere. And you can see up in the western and central UP, values of around 2 inches and higher are expected. Again, across the lower peninsula, it is scattered depending on where the storms hit the most. And so that's why we have around quarter to half an inch of rain zone for most of the lower peninsula, with a dashed line in most of the lower peninsula for the possibility to see upwards of 1.5 inches, given that these storms will pop up anywhere and everywhere. And so you could have 1.5 inches at your house, but your neighbor 3 blocks down might only get 1/4 inch. So that's how localized these rainfall totals will be tomorrow for those pop-ups. So keep that in mind. That's why it looks like a bunch of polka dots across the lower peninsula for tomorrow here on our rainfall map.
And the models are going to continue to change in terms of where those pulse storms are at. So if you look at your location and are like, all right, it looks like I'm getting 1.25 inches of rain tomorrow. Don't take that for exact. When you look at these forecasts, rainfall forecasts, have a set range. You know, that's what we have in our forecast, you know, 1 inch to, 1.25 inches of rainfall. It's always a set range, and especially with pulse storms too. Just think of lake effect snow. It varies on different locations. You're gonna have one area that's gonna get a very heavy downpour, and then 5 miles out, it's sunny skies. So that's just another thing to be mindful about. Is that's why we have these set ranges, is because of these kinds of setups. When you have these pop-up storms in nature, basically the model is trying to figure out where the rough location will be, but each model run is going to show a different county potentially in a different storm. So the overall highlight or message is, like Joel was mentioning earlier on, is if you're in a severe weather risk, just be mindful of the possibility of storms, whether it's a low chance or a higher chance.
Yeah. If we could tell you the future, we would, but obviously meteorologists aren't magicians. We don't have a crystal ball in our back pocket that can tell you who and exactly where is going to get this amount of rain. Again, the models there's a bunch of different models, and so there's like 20 or 30 different models that we use, and we kind of have to use from our experience as meteorologists. We have to figure out which one have good biases, which one have bad biases, and which one has had a good track record recently as well, so previous trends in the last couple of systems. And we have to take that all into effect to make one forecast that is somewhat close to what could happen for your area. Again, that's why this job is so difficult, because we are basically predicting probabilities of things happening in your area. It's a lot of math, and fluid dynamics, which is what meteorology is, has a million different solutions of calculus based, like physics and stuff, that are changing literally every single second. It's all, again, probability based, linear algebra, differential equation based. Basically, if you looked outside and looked at the clouds, you can think of it as a bunch of different moving numbers moving in a bunch of different directions. Some people call it like the butterfly effect. You could have, a lake somewhere, like an inland lake where there's, it's 2 square miles around that lake. If it's like 5 degrees warmer on a certain day, that could have major impact on, what's happening 15 miles downwind of that lake, in terms of how much excess cape is coming from that lake. And again, all these models are some of them are good resolution, but we don't have every single air parcel mapped on a model run. So these, for example, the HRRR here is a 3-kilometer average of what to expect in that area. It's not, your backyard, for example. We get that all the time, like, hey, you can't forecast for our backyard. It's physically impossible on these models. I would say if we did have a model that could do that, it would probably take hours upon hours to run if we had it that fine resolution. But again, just goes to show you how difficult these forecasts can be in the back end of things from a meteorological standpoint. And again, we have the reflectivity shown on the screen here. As mentioned, it gives a good idea of what the intensity of the showers are going to be, but it doesn't exactly show you where projected location is going to be. So you can see there's going to be cells popping up all across the east side of the state tomorrow. You could look at this model run 6 hours from now, and those pop-ups, for example, so if you see one right here in Mecosta, Isabella, that cell 6 hours from now could be, 20 miles shifted north, 20 miles shifted south. So again, that's why tomorrow is very imperative that you realize that your location may only get a 1/4 inch of rain. Your neighbor's location 3 blocks down the road might get 1.5 inches, depending on where that cell exactly lines up. That's what makes pop-up days very, very interesting for the state of Michigan. However, the ones that are easier to track are going to be obviously your systems, your MCVs, somewhat easier. I won't say the easiest by any means, as you said, Drew. But MCVs are kind of like mini systems that are somewhat easier to track compared to at least pop-ups in terms of location. And you can see that there's going to be at least some sort of Boeing segment that makes it across the lake tomorrow that we expect to happen. Now, it depends on how much of that bow is going to stay intact. Again, we see our instability starting to decrease through the evening hours tomorrow. The later that comes on shore, the less instability is going to be available for that system to move in. And so we'll see that line start to break up as the night goes on. So we do expect a Boeing segment. Will it fall apart as it comes on the lake, or will it stay sustained as it moves across the lower peninsula, 131, 127 over to the east side of the state through the early morning hours?
Yeah, that's exactly what Joel mentioned. There's a lot of uncertainty with, the pole storms. It's basically uncertainty stacked upon uncertainty. So there's only so much we can do. But for many of you guys that might be in this chat, you might be familiar of the term that we use called mesoanalysis. That's basically a feature that we love to use on the current day. So for an example, today, we could pull up current data, basically seeing what the atmosphere is doing. It's basically an average of what the atmosphere is doing. That's what Joel has pulled up right there. We can see CAPE values. We can see if there's spin in the atmosphere. We can see if there's shear in the atmosphere. We can see lapse rates, not in the low levels, mid levels. And SKUTs, photographs. There's a lot of things we can access, which is really helpful, especially on these high uncertainty days in terms of how things could play out. So mesoanalysis is really a true friend when it comes to meteorology in terms of how a setup kind of all plays out. And kind of like what Joel was mentioning with the MCV, there is at least some confidence that we will get some sort of line segment kind of moving in. The question is how much, like Joel was mentioning, how much leftover instability will be in place? Does the system arrive earlier? If it arrives earlier, there will be more instability for the system to take advantage of. I was pulling a few soundings earlier on, and it was suggesting maybe a small cap, which that means there's not enough instability, and then that would reduce any tornadic threat, for an example, or your overall severe threat. So there's a lot of what ifs, and those really won't be fully answered until the day of. So we can give you guys a rough picture and give you maybe the location of where this could impact, but the exact fine details really won't be exactly nailed down until tomorrow, in my opinion.
So real quick before I forget, we also have one super chat in here from YouTube today. Red Dozier, our number one donor here, says, I'm going to brag. Already picked just under 100 zucchini, but I sure could use some rain, Joel and Drew. We'll see what we can do for you there. I believe you're in the Allegan County area, so watch out tomorrow night, especially for perhaps a Boeing segment that comes on shore. That would produce some rain. Unfortunately, it looks like rainfall for the west side of the state again is going to look fairly minimal over the course of the next 48 hours compared to the counterparts of the UP. So thank you very much, Red Dozier, and we hope the gardening continues to go well this summer.
Any other questions, guys, in regards to today's or tomorrow's severe weather setup? I know on the west side of US 131 has been kind of in a mini drought, if I would like to call it, or a little bit of a rain deficit. So it is nice to see that there is some decent confidence of at least rain and some thunderstorms impacting west of US 131 tomorrow, which we do need it. Um, Obviously, it's not near as much as what the UP is getting today, but we'll take any rain that we can get here. Because I noticed for a fact I live in Ottawa County, and you can see it that there's a lot of yards that are lacking rain. We even have underground sprinkling, and we still have several dry spots present in our yard just due to the amount of heat. And we can use it because we won't talk about it in depth here, but next week is looking pretty hot and humid once again. So we can definitely take the rain.
I'm not muted, or I gotta unmute myself. The only thing I was mentioning is this is your outlooks for today and tomorrow. That's all you missed. Today is in the top row. Tomorrow is in the second row. And again, the threats for today are all hazards. So you see in the UP, 2% for tornado, 15% for hail and wind. We also have tomorrow's risk on the second row there. That is primarily damaging wind driven. But we do have a tornado threat off to the west a little bit. And obviously you can see there's no hail threat for tomorrow. But again, in our end of things, we're seeing slightly elevated lapse rates. Again, kind of similar to today up in the UP, where the lapse rates are sufficient enough for some larger hail that will move over into our side of the state tomorrow. So on our forecast, you'll see it later this afternoon. There's a chance for some hail tomorrow, primarily damaging winds and perhaps a brief tornado threat in the vicinity of the MCV. Timing for tonight is going to be anytime between now, but really it's going to be around that 8 p.m. time frame Eastern time for the Western UP for that main line. That'll work across to the Eastern UP, although it'll start to fall apart as we get into the early morning hours tomorrow. And then we have Wednesday's threat, which is really anytime after 3 o'clock for pop-ups through about 3 a.m. The primary timing for that Boeing segment will be around 9 o'clock to 3 a.m. for west to east side of the state. Otherwise, pop-ups expected 3 p.m. to really 9 p.m. So it's kind of divided into two segments there. If you think about it, the right side, so the east side of the state, zone 2 is the 3 to 9, and then everything else, which can include that zone 2 on the east side of the state as well, is 9 p.m. and later. So keep that in mind. We'll have these maps out for you guys here, and we'll explain it a little bit better on our Facebook page, Michigan Storm Chasers, this afternoon. Again, all these posts will be out within the next couple hours. Patreon was just released as well, so if you want to go check it out on Patreon right now, all the hazard maps are there, patreon.com/Michigan Storm Chasers. It's optional to join. You can join for as low as $2 a month, and it helps support operations here at Michigan Storm Chasers. Otherwise, feel no need to join. These same forecasts will be out for the public release later this afternoon.
once again, we're expecting the heaviest rainfall to be in the UP. We could have it maybe for tomorrow, where a few isolated downpours could, quickly drop a lot of rainfall in an area, so maybe some localized flooding. But once again, not really expecting that right now. It's more just the UP or that trailing line that's going to be moving of heavy rainfall, as Joel has pulled up right here, is basically the main concern in terms of flooding risk. But can't fully rule it out with a few of those pulse storms tomorrow, but we've seen it before in the past. But I think the main concern for any kind of flooding would be more today in the UP. So.
So Southwest Michigan, for those who missed the forecast for Southwest Michigan, again, thunderstorms are possible. 94 and south tonight. That'll be primarily after midnight. Those storms are not expected to be severe. Your main priority for severe is going to be tomorrow, and that goes for all of the lower peninsula as well. It's going to be tomorrow, really after 3 o'clock, as mentioned, and then we have that secondary line moving across the lake, really 9 o'clock and later for the Wednesday time frame. Again, if you're in the UP today, anytime really after 8 o'clock Eastern, you can see that line moving on shore from Lake Superior, and then that moves across and fizzles out by around midnight to 1 a.m. And then our secondary lines and pop-up storms tomorrow. We'll go ahead and go through our sponsors here real quick as we start to wrap up the stream here. Again, if you've missed anything so far, feel free to rewind the stream. You can do so here, I believe, on YouTube. If not, wait till the stream is over with. You can go ahead and rewind back if you missed anything. All the information is there. Starting with our sponsors, we have StormGuard Roofing and Construction, based out of North Metro Detroit. Lifestyle Exteriors, based out of Lansing and Traverse City. Katz Roofing and Siding, based out of Lansing, Potterville. Pro Powder, based out of South Haven. Mike Hayes Roofing and Siding, based out of Sanilac, St. Clair. McKay Tree Specialists, based out of Southeast Michigan. Kuiper Tree Care, based out of West Michigan. FBI Buildings, Lower Peninsula sponsor for all of your barn-dominium needs. On Top Roofing, based out of Livingston County. Schneider Commercial Building Solutions, based out of Lansing, as well as Shield Public Adjusters. Also have Top Gun Roofing Exteriors, based out of West Michigan. A-Class Construction and Restoration, based out of Mason County. Rainbow Restoration, based out of Kent County in West Michigan. Our sponsor for two-way radio communications between our chasers, Rapid Radios. And lastly, for all of your security camera needs, security camera setups, as well as our sponsor here at MSC for all of our Skynet cams, Guardian Technologies is the sponsor. Those are all of our sponsors here at MSC, our trusted partners. They've been vetted. So if you need any roofing, exterior or home, restoration needs, powder coating needs, insurance adjustment needs, all of those sponsors were there on the left side of the screen. Feel free to go back and screenshot the information as needed. Again, they are vetted. They have been run through background checks. Definitely highly trusted. If you missed them as well during severe weather events, you can always reach out to us on Messenger, and we'll get you in contact with our trusted partners. So shout out to our trusted partners, sponsors today, for keeping MSC operations going 24/7. We couldn't do it without them. So give them all of your love, I guess you could say, as we continue our operations through the summertime here in Michigan. Yes, you did see me on Twitch last night. We were gaming. So yes, so we do have a Twitch channel for those who are curious. We are closing in on 1,000 followers on our Twitch channel. So if you have a Twitch account, feel free to follow us there. MI Storm Chasers is our name. So obviously our severe weather coverage is always going to be there on Twitch. We also additionally do from time to time host some game nights if it's a very, very slow night, which last night was a slow night. So we did a little bit of gaming last night on our Twitch channel. Feel free to go follow us there, MI Storm Chasers. As always, we are live on 4 different platforms. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch TV, and X are our 4 platforms we do all of our severe weather coverage from, as well as these briefings. So make sure you're following us in at least, we recommend at least 2, just in case one of the platforms does go down. It has happened before. It'll probably happen again in the future. So make sure you are following us on at least 2. The main 2 are YouTube and Facebook. However, if you want to watch on Twitch, again, that is going to be the shortest delay. Again, each platform has its own ups and downs. Again, Twitch has the shortest delay if you are in need of information quicker, because the delay on YouTube and Facebook is about 15 to 30 seconds. By the time we record it and it gets out to you on Twitch, it's about 5. Nothing we can control. It's just how the platforms work. So again, Twitch TV is our username on Twitch TV is MI Storm Chasers. For those who haven't heard of Twitch before, it's basically a program, or it's an app that usually a lot of gamers usually stream to, more of the younger generations. However, again, there's no rules against streaming severe weather coverage to Twitch, so we're doing it on there just to kind of reach out in a different platform. Highly recommend if you guys want to try it out. Also, before I head off today, we'd like to shout out our mods, as always. Thank you for tuning in and helping out with the chat today. Kind of a couple of them in here. Thank you guys very much. Your work is very appreciated here at MSC, keeping everyone in check. And as always, sometimes bringing down the band hammer, just in case people are out of line. So thank you guys very much. And yeah, other than that, I think we've covered pretty much everything. Again, the main stories is severe weather today for the UP, severe weather tomorrow for the lower peninsula, and heavy rainfall mainly across the upper peninsula between today, tomorrow, and into Thursday as well. And again, rainfall rates up there could be 2 inches or greater. Across the lower peninsula, around a quarter or half an inch area wide. Not too crazy by any means. There could be a couple areas that do pick up an inch to an inch and a half due to localized storms that will fall in some places, primarily after 3 o'clock tomorrow. Again, timing for these storms, we'll actually go through the RRFS as well, just to kind of see what the RRFS is looking at for tomorrow. Because again, we just looked at the ARRR. The RRFS kind of gives you a better story here. So RRFS actually has us moving in around 6 to 7 tonight and making it a little bit further across the UP. Fizzles out. You can see our cells tomorrow pop up fairly later in the afternoon. And then we have our main system coming on shore as late as 2 a.m. So that's very interesting. There's about a 4-hour swing between the RFS and the ARRR. So again, this is what we mean by we have to kind of use our averages of different models and try to figure out good timing, rainfall rates, where exactly severe weather is going to happen. It makes it very fun and very interesting here at MSC. But we give you guys the best forecast we can based on previous trends and how models have done in previous events. So hopefully the forecast for the next couple days do work out in your favor or not in your favor, depending on if you want rain, don't want rain, want storms, don't want storms. It all depends. Again, everything is probabilities nonetheless, so keep that in mind. A low chance is non-zero chance. So even if you are in the 1 to 5% range or whatever it is, you still have a chance to see severe weather. That's basically means, because if you think about it the other way, it's a 95 to 99% chance that you don't see severe weather if you're in a level 1 zone. That being said, you've beat the odds if you get a storm in that low range. So keep that in mind. Probabilities are there for a reason. Everything is probability based. And we'll keep you guys updated here at MSC for any severe weather in terms of live streams tonight and tomorrow as well. We'll have a busy next 24 to 48 hours here at MSC. So bear with us. Hopefully we won't get too tired. Hopefully our jinxes of eating food at the wrong time also doesn't come back to bite us. Inside joke for those who don't realize. Anytime someone eats food here at MSC, something goes warned. Usually it's Ryan or me or Drew, and one of us is usually sitting by the computer when it happens. So the goal is we don't eat food around when severe weather is happening. So either way, again, severe weather is possible / likely in portions of the state over the next 24 to 48 hours, and we'll keep you updated here at MSC as always. Make sure you're following us at Michigan Storm Chasers, MI Storm Chasers on any platform. And as always, follow us on Facebook for all of our posts. 100% of them are always posted to Facebook, Michigan Storm Chasers. Make sure the blue verification mark is next to it. That's the one to follow. Drew, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I think you kind of covered everything, Joel. As always, we'll have, I bet, a few chasers out and about. I don't know about today, but for sure tomorrow with the pulse storms and the MCV that will be moving through.
Good news is no snow. I said the forbidden S word. No snow the next 24 to 40 hours, obviously. But, season's coming soon enough. We do have hot temperatures and humidity increasing as well over the next couple days. We have dew points coming back into the 70s tomorrow and Thursday. So it'll be muggy out there. Keep that in mind. Heat indices are going to be in the 90s, maybe even close to 100 in some spots. So make sure you're drinking plenty of water as well. Something to remind yourself of. And summer will roll on. If you're not a fan of winter, try and bottle up some of this warmth now so you can keep it with you into the winter time frame. If you could, obviously you can't physically do that, but if you could, just kind of remember what this is like when it's 10 degrees and snowing in January 2nd of 2026 or whatever. So, yeah, I can add money to the swear jar. My bad. Have a great afternoon, everyone. We'll catch you guys soon here at Michigan Storm Chasers, probably for some weather coverage as early as maybe 6 to 7 o'clock this afternoon, evening. We'll see. Again, all times in Eastern. And again, make sure you're following us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or X for all of our live streams. Make sure you're following us on at least 2 of those if you haven't, just in case one platform does go down. Again, YouTube, Facebook are the best platforms to watch on. So we'll catch you guys later. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Stay hydrated, stay cool, stay safe. And we'll catch you next time here at MSC.
See you guys.